Well, the energy and enthusiasm, good. I like it. Summit, excited for that.
Yes.
We've got a guest speaker, so that'll be fun to hear her perspective. So, first of all, I want to recognize somebody. I had a conversation yesterday with several people, and I mentioned to several people, hey, you should probably consider coming to Morning Ascent because there's a great collection of people who are focused on their personal development, growing their business, and associating with other people who want to do that. And one of those people took me up on that offer, Pedro Lira with Inspiro Financial. So give him just some recognition. It's really important to work with people who are vested in your success and are willing to show up and work with you. And the mere fact that in just a quick conversation that we had, he's willing to show up. I just want to make certain that we recognize him. You've been in the business for over 20 years, right? And the guys, particularly if you're working with borrowers who have challenges with whether it's citizenship or qualifying, maybe they're self-employed, some of the more difficult loans. He likes easy ones, but I can tell you he's exceptional at working on the difficult ones. And we know we're in a market right now, Brenda Lee, where we're going to see a lot of what? Difficult loans. And he's the guy who can help you with that. So Pedro, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. So let me start with this. I want to read this to you. It's one of my favorite quotes. It's by Rich Warren, The Purpose-Driven Life. Anybody read that? You've read it. I know you have because we've read it years ago, but it's a great book. But this quote is out of that book, and I just want you to listen to this. Your commitments can develop you or destroy you, but either way, they will define you. Let me repeat that because it's such an important statement. Your commitments can develop you or destroy you, but either way, they will define you. That sink in, and if you need me to repeat it, I will, because I want you to write it down.
Amazing.
Your commitments can either develop you or destroy you, but either way, they will define you. If you need me to repeat it one more time, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Your commitments can either develop you or destroy you, but either way, they will define you. So what's the gist of that? What is he saying there? Your commitments can either develop you or destroy you. Well, what's the difference, Trevor?
Well, I think if you're going to set a goal or a commitment,
Mhm.
if you're going to hold yourself to that, you're definitely going to develop and grow as a person.
Yep.
But if you don't hold yourself to it, you're going to beat yourself up. Your self-confidence is going to go down and it will destroy you.
I agree, but is that really what he's saying?
I
Suzanne?
think it's it has to do with the habits. If
Okay.
you have too many bad habits, then and you keep doing them, it doesn't.
You're on to something there. So
Yeah.
pause there for a second. Yeah, what's your name? Come on.
My name's Ashley.
Ashley.
So it's setting a commitment either way, whether you're doing it or not, you're telling yourself what you're committed to, whether it's the growth or whether it's staying where you are.
Okay, yeah, okay, yes.
I think similar to what Senna was saying, kind of goes tailing off her end. If you're committing to do good things, then that'll help you.
Right.
Committing, you're doing bad things or
What's
not.
the word though? Say it. What's the word? The operative word this morning. Committed.
Committed, yeah,
Say it.
Yeah.
Committed to what?
to doing bad.
Bad things.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Listen, so with that perspective in mind, because is it possible for us to be committed to bad things?
Yes.
Say yes without doubt.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are we all guilty of being committed to bad things?
Yes.
Yes.
You all know that you're supposed to prospect, right?
Yes.
And how many of you have been committed to not doing that at times?
Yes.
Seriously, right? I feel like this is like a Baptist revival. Right, but listen to this. Your commitments can develop you or destroy you, but either way, they will define you. And so when I read that years ago, it was probably 12, 13 years ago, Jason. So the next logical thought that I had was this. I said to myself, well, if that's true, that your commitments can develop you or destroy you, but either way, they will define you. What I said in my mind is, well, then really our commitments are what we say they are. They're what we do. So with that in mind, I'm going to share a story with you. Many of you have heard this story before. Jason's heard it probably about 1 million times, but it's a great story about commitment and not letting fear get in the way. Because here's what I know, because I'm guilty of it. We all are. We tend to be committed to things oftentimes that are detrimental to what it is that we say that we want because we are afraid. Yes or yes?
Yeah.
And we're in the sort of a market, the sort of a world, the sort of economy, the sort of political environment where it's easy to be what? Afraid. And when we're in fear, what we tend to do is to be committed to the wrong things, because what we do is we tend to pull back from the things that cause us to be in fear. We avoid the things, the conversations, the activities that make us feel what? Uncomfortable. Right. And what I've always said, because I didn't invent this statement, but you're not going to get anything different than what you currently have if you're unwilling to change what you currently do. You have to change your behavior. So let me just share this story with you. Those of you who know me at least somewhat well know that my favorite city is what?
New York.
Yes, New York. I love New York. I'm in New York and I'm standing there looking up. I don't remember what street I'm on because there's so many of them. Do you know how many buildings are in New York?
Many.
1,100.
Tens of thousands.
5,800.
I was like,
5,800. Look over there. Do you know how many we have over there?
And
They're like 15 or 16. Yeah. So now take that and multiply that by, I don't know what the factor is, but 5,800. And those are considered tiny buildings
Yeah.
in New York. So if you've never been there, you need to go. You can stand on the street and look down the street, and literally, because the street's so long and the buildings are so large, they converge. It looks like the buildings just go boom, and bump into one another. They don't, but it looks like that. So I'm standing there in awe of this. This is, I don't know, it's probably my 4th or 5th time in New York, and I've been there probably 15, 20 times. I don't know. And I'm looking around and there's a guy next to me, and I was just inspired to ask the question. And it's Urbano, right?
Yeah.
I said, Urbano, I said to him, I said, when you look at these buildings, what do you see? And he looked at me like, what do you mean? He's like, well, it's obvious they're buildings. And he said, I don't know. And I said, well, when you look at them, what do you see? He said, well, I don't know. I guess I see glass and steel and concrete. And I said, well, yeah, that's true. That's what's there. And he looked at me like, well, that's obviously not the answer you wanted, is it? It wasn't the answer I wanted. I wanted to hear something a little more inspiring. And I said, well, he said, well, so what do you see? I said, well, what I see is a lot of hard work. I see a lot of commitment. I see a lot of failure. I see a lot of success. I see a lot of struggle. I see a lot of determination. He looked at me and he said, oh, I never looked at it that way. I said, well, I didn't either, but just standing here looking at it, each one of these stories has a building, or each one of these buildings has a story. You look at it and say, somebody had an idea to build this thing that's 70, 80, 90, 100, 110 stories tall. That's no easy thing. Good morning, Amy. That is difficult because it takes billions of dollars to do that. I don't know about you. Anybody, have a few billion lying around? Yeah, right.
Someday.
Right. So, but I'm standing there looking at that. Well, so one of my favorite stories about New York and about this idea of commitment and what you're committed to, and even in hard times, when there is challenge, when there is struggle, when it looks like there's so much uncertainty and people are running for the exits, right? As they are in many ways in various areas of their lives, including in real estate. You see it, right? Rockefeller Center. It was a dream of John D. Rockefeller Jr., who was the only son of John Rockefeller Sr. He inherited pretty much the entire wealth of his father. And if you know anything about history, when I say the roaring what? 20s. It was because the 20s, in the 1920s, in the 20th century, everything was great. I mean, the economy was just humming along. The stock market was at an all-time high. Henry Ford had come out with the Model T and then the A, and people could buy a car. It was the first time where the average individual could be so mobile, they could move across the country. It wasn't just move from one town to the next. They could literally go from New York to California and start a new life. It was a burgeoning new era in the United States. We had never seen, and no country in the world had ever seen the sort of economic success that the United States was experiencing in the 1920s. Therefore, the roaring 20s. Well, in 1929, in October, however many years ago that's been, but the anniversary was just this last month. What happened? The stock market what? It crashed. And over the course of a couple of years, the stock market lost 89% of its value. Now imagine the stock market today losing 89% of its value. 89%.
Chaos.
So, right. So if you had invested $10,000 in the stock market on the day before the stock market crashed or when it hit its peak, within a couple of years, that $10,000 would be worth what? $1,100. Like, holy cow. A shock? Scary?
Yeah.
Scary, right? Scary. Say scary.
Scary.
So John D. Rockefeller, leading up to that point, had this grand vision that he was going to create what was now known as Rockefeller Center. Wasn't called that at the time, but we know it as Rockefeller Center. And if you don't know Rockefeller Center, it's 22 acres in Midtown Manhattan. And to give you perspective, real estate costs in New York are probably the second or third highest in the world, maybe behind San Francisco and Tokyo. That's about it. And it might be number one right now. I don't know where it is, but expensive, 22 acres. He had this dream of building, I think at the time it was 14. Eventually there are 19 buildings at Rockefeller Center, 19 massive buildings. If you stand at the primary building at the promenade there at Rockefeller Center and look up, it is just, it's awe-inspiring. Anybody been there and stood there at the,
Oh, yeah.
it's awe-inspiring, is there? It's last month. Right, it's where they put the Christmas tree and where they have the ice skating rink, right there. It's that, it's iconic. So that was his dream of building this. Well, he had lined up all the financing, like all the commitments, because the New York Metropolitan Opera was going to build a theater there, an opera house, and everything was going to be there. And all these banks and investors, all these institutions had committed, they were going to provide money to build Rockefeller Center. And then October 1929 happened. And guess what? Everyone to the number, with every one of the financiers, banks, and the opera, and all of them, what did they say?
Yeah.
They said, don't do it. We're not doing it. We're not going to provide the money. They said, if you do this, it will ruin you. Now imagine that. See, we have the benefit of hindsight. We can look back and say, well, it exists, it's there. So it obviously worked out. 1929, the stock market crashes. People were jumping out of those tall buildings, committing suicide because they had lost so much wealth in one day. And over the course of 2 years, as he was still in the planning process, the stock market loses 89% of its value. And guess what he decided to do? Continue. And it was all self-funded. He decided that he was going to put his entire net worth at risk to achieve this dream that he had. And part of it, if you've ever been there and you've read and you walk through Rockefeller Center, because it's really, they have a storyboard and you go through and you get to see the history of it. And they tell the story of Rockefeller Center and the impact that it had. He employed thousands and thousands of people during the Great Depression. He didn't know that it was going to work out, and yet he did it. He stood up, he made the commitment to build Rockefeller Center. So I go back to that statement. Somebody read that quote that I gave you in the beginning.
Your commitments can develop you or destroy you. Either way, they will define you.
Yeah. So was John D. Rockefeller committed to being safe?
No.
He was committed to a what? Just like Martin Luther King said, what? I have a what?
Dream.
He was committed to a dream. And he wasn't going to be swayed, even because there hasn't been year to date an economic time that was more severe, more difficult than the Great Depression. Now, he didn't know that, but what he did know is the stock market crashed and that people lost most of their wealth within that short period of time. Rockefeller Center took years to build. And during all of that tumult, all of that scarcity, all of that fear, he stayed true, focused to his dream. So I ask you this question, what are you committed to? Because see, it's difficult out there. It is. I'm not going to lie to you. It's difficult. It is. But there's also so much opportunity out there. You get to decide what you see. And more importantly, you get to decide what you're committed to. What I would suggest is that you re-examine what you're committed to. See, if you're committed to being safe, not being comfortable, or rather being comfortable, if you're committed to being safe and being comfortable, right? As opposed to not being quote unquote safe and being uncomfortable, this is going to be a very difficult time for you over the next 12, 24, 36 months. Because these are the times that allow us to prove truly who we are and what we're committed to. Listen, it's easy to feel good and powerful and awesome when life is good. When buyers and sellers are knocking down your doors, calling your number to have you help them. It's another thing to prove who you are when people are running for the exits. When you have to stand up as a leader, as a true leader with confidence in yourself, and to see still that there was opportunity out there. I talked yesterday morning, I think it was Morning Ascent, where I talked about Warren Buffett saying that the best opportunities are always in these times, these challenging times. Because as he calls them, the institutional investors will see the opportunities and they'll buy, they'll double down, they'll invest in these times. So you get to decide what you're going to be committed to. You get to decide what principles are going to guide you. Are you looking for safety? Or are you looking for growth? Are you looking for opportunities to hide? Or are you looking for opportunities to be visible? Yes, John.
Warren Buffett actually prepared for this. He sold off $350 million or the billion. No, $350 million of its good stock, so we'd have cash whenever.
To buy out the opportunities.
Yeah,
Yeah, because he knows over the next 12 to 24 months, there are going to be a lot of opportunities.
yeah,
Yeah, he wants to buy at discount.
yeah.
Yeah, he's like a great Walmart shopper, but only in the stock market.
John?
It's what you're talking about. Are you seeing opportunities or are you seeing challenges?
Right, right. Or more specifically, problems, right? Yeah, are
Right.
you seeing problems? Yes. And then-
I just wanted to add to both of these stories is that when he was thinking about all those investors backing out and fleeing from the scene and not wanting to invest and build that dream. Gotta understand now, there's a lot of agents in the market that are also getting out of the business and also
Yes.
finding jobs. So the people that rise and lead out, they will get the opportunities. And then you will be able to achieve your dreams, no matter how difficult the market is. So I
100%.
love that because it fits today.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah, there truly is in times like this, more abundance in terms of opportunity than what you went through the last 12 to 24 months, but you have to be present and look for that and be the person who's committed to the fundamentals of success in this business, which is to prospect, which is to follow up, which is to work on your skill sets like you were doing this morning so effectively. And congratulations, because you did very well. Yes, sir.
Well, in my deepest, darkest times, I come up with this that I kept telling myself, and is that you can either fly like an eagle in the storm or be blown around like a leaf.
Yeah.
And a leaf is one thing, and the reason it's being blown around because it's dead and motionless.
Yeah.
An eagle rises into the wind and the stress and goes to heights unknown.
I love that.
So you have to choose in any given moment to do that, and that can define where you're going.
I love that. I love that metaphor. I love it. So let's just finish with this. I'm not going to do it now, but I think you should spend some time really examining what you're committed to. And sometimes what you're going to find is you're committed to things that are not helpful. Be honest with yourself. Have a be honest conversation and recognize, look, in my personal life, with my relationships or with my health or with my business, what are the things that I'm committed to that I know are detrimental, that are working against the things that I say that I want? Because there isn't any one of you in here who doesn't want greatness in any one of those three areas. But I suspect that all of you have an area, or maybe all three of those areas, where there's something you're committed to that's preventing you from having that life that you want in any of those three areas.
I find the best way to do that is just write down what you do during the day,
Mhm.
because you've got to see what you're committed to, not tell yourself what you're committed to. Because we can all sit down and go, I'm committed to this, this, and this. And then I go through your schedule or
Right.
I go through your bank account or your credit card and say, that's not what you're committed to.
It goes back to what I said. Your commitments aren't what you say they are, they're what you do. So that's great advice.
Blues in the journey, right?
Yep. Okay, gang, we're out of time, but fun to spend some time with you. Let's see you all there at Summit. We've got a great opportunity to listen from somebody who is, or listen to somebody who's had a great journey and a great story and going to be very inspiring. So see you there. Okay, let's go. Get up.